It feels like there's just something different about Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava this spring. Why do I say that? More takeaways from the first 3 practices of Tennessee football spring practice. That and so much more. It's your Thursday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Thursday morning edition of Locked On Vols. Couldn't do it without you everydayers for being here and being a part of the show. Appreciate you guys for doing just that. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and today's episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at TurboTax, where you can make tax season stress-free and get the most money back guaranteed. Head on over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert. Again, that is TurboTax.com today. Got a fun show coming up here today. Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com. Going to join him in a little stand-up we did following spring practice number 3. That's coming up in segment number 3. Who's a key for Tennessee basketball in the SEC tournament in Nashville this weekend? Spoke a little bit about it with Ryan Shumpert on yesterday's show, but an interesting take from another publication that I want to bring on the show. We'll talk hoops in segment number 2, and then some big takeaways in segment number 1 here for the first couple of practices of spring for Tennessee. I think Nico looks like a completely different player in this one respect. I'm going to tell you that here right now. All right, so he still looks the same, even though I think that he's put on some weight. He said that, this being Nico, said that he's up to about 220 pounds, wants to get to around 225 or 230 pounds. I will remind you that Nico showed up to campus a couple of years ago in January 2023, I guess, weighing like 190. So he's already been putting on a lot of pounds. It might not look like it per se, but, you know, he joined the media, spoke to the media Wednesday after practice, and I don't know, he looked a little bit bigger, looked a little bit more defined, and that's obviously a good thing. He could still stand to put on some pounds, but he physically looks a little bit bigger. But one of the talking points, one of the main storylines, in my opinion, this spring is not only, you know, offensive line, who's going to play where, defensive backfield, who's going to step up at corner, you know, who's going to step up as a backup star, and, you know, all that. Not only a wide receiver, like, do you have enough bodies? It's and I've said it all offseason, for Tennessee to get back to the college football playoff, for Tennessee to be where it wants to be at the end of the 2025 season, Nico has got to take a step. And I think part of that step is he has got to be the clear-cut, without a doubt, leader of this football team. So when he spoke to the media on Wednesday, a big theme was that of leadership. Joey Halsley, we even asked him about it as well. And just kind of how's he going about that process? Clearly, he's not a rah-rah guy. He's not the in-your-face motivate type guy. He's not soft-spoken, but he's kind of quiet, kind of reserved. And so not everybody has to be the super outgoing type of leader. But the quarterback at the University of Tennessee has got to be a leader. No ifs, ands, buts about it. Quoted, this is Nico Iamaleava when asked about leadership. He said, quote, "Just for me, getting up in front of the whole team, really, I got comfortable with speaking to my individual position group and the offense last year. When it comes to letting the whole offense and defense, the whole team hear your voice, I think that's been the biggest thing for me, just stepping out of my shell. I wasn't very comfortable speaking in front of large crowds and stuff like that, but I have taken that next step. That's something I'm continuing to work on." That was from Nico Iamaleava earlier on a Wednesday. And, you know, I asked him personally if he got any advice from those guys, you know, who were in front of him, the Brew McCoys, the Dylan Sampsons, the Cooper Mays, stuff like that. And I wanted to know, like, did they give you any advice on, you know, how to lead, or, you know, once they were gone, knowing that you were going to have to be the vocal leader? And he said they told me to always be myself. Quote, "Always be myself. They know I'm not the loudest. They know I'm not the rah-rah guy for everybody. But at the same time, I need to be in certain instances. They just told me to always be myself. You don't have to be nobody else. Don't change yourself and try to portray an image of a good leader. Just be myself, and I feel like I've done a good job in doing that," end quote. Yeah, I mean, people can spot BS. Just like you in your workplace, just like you and maybe a group setting with your friends. If someone's spewing BS, you can spot it, right? It's the same way in a football locker room out there on the practice field. If someone's trying to go out there and be a leader and just come in with all this fake energy, you can spot that. So I thought that was a really, really interesting piece there. Advice from some of the leaders on the team last year. Hey, Nico, just be yourself. They don't need anybody other than you. And Joey Halsey, had an interesting take whenever he met with the media on Wednesday as well, when asked about, the leadership of Nico. How's he growing in that regard? He said, quote, "That has been a big part of what we have talked to him about. Everyone knows who he is as a player and the athlete on the field. He is an elite player. The challenge this year is you have that, we know about that. Let's take that step off the field. You're the one that is going to have to be the united voice. Without Cooper Mates, without Dylan Sampson, without Brew McCoy in the building anymore, a guy like him can step in and really take it over and lead it his way. He can't be fake," going on to what I just said a moment ago. You can't be something you're not, but you do have to be willing to step out, step in front of the team, and address guys and clean things up, especially when things are not going right. He also went on later in his media availability. I don't have it right here in front of me, so I do apologize. But essentially he said, hey, there was a clear example of it earlier today at practice. They were doing a drill or, a rep or whatever. He didn't like what was going on. He brought the guys in, addressed it, and then they went out and fixed it. And I thought that was really, really cool. So, in sitting there, we talked to Nico for about 9 minutes or so. He just felt more confident, more comfortable in his own skin. He's used to talking to us now. This is year number 3 he's been doing this. He looked physically a little bit bigger. He just he had a different aroma about him a little bit. Like, I feel like he just was exuding confidence. And yes, all this ends up, it's got to translate onto the field. I recognize all that. But that's kind of a quarterback that I want to follow off the field or on the practice field. Nico was really impressive the other day. So I thought that he's off to a great start in spring. But I also feel like, hey, he looks in front of him. There's no Cooper Mays for the first time in 2 years for him. There's no Brew McCoy out to his left. There's no Dylan Sampson right beside him in the backfield. He's just kind of sitting here saying, oh, this is me. This is my show. And he talked about trying to lead the wide receiver room as well, and he and Chris Brazzell, and talked about how he challenged Chris Brazzell to kind of lead that room and look after the young wide receivers. It just felt like a different Nico the other day. At the end of the day, what's that mean on the field? I don't know. We're probably not going to see a lot of that this spring. Does that translate into better plays, into better completion percentages, numbers in the fall? I don't know. We'll see. But I thought that was interesting, and I kind of wanted to bring it on to the show and talk about it. Another takeaway that I have from Wednesday's media availability and practice session, Tennessee fans are going to absolutely love Sam Pendleton. Really. First and foremost, he's the offensive lineman Tennessee got via the transfer portal from Notre Dame, okay? He has a vertical bar on his face mask. That is the old school face mask, all right? I wore one of those in middle school. You're looking straight ahead, there's a bar right in front of you. So you're looking at your left eye and your right eye, but there's a bar right in front of you. You don't see that ever, hardly, anymore in college football. In fact, as a joke, I asked him, did Hawk have to order that for you? Or did they have one in stock? And he laughed. He said, I don't know. They just handed me one. Seriously, you don't see anybody wearing that. But number one, that screams dude on the offensive line, in my opinion. So, number one, vertical, bar on his face mask. Number two, he spoke about how he takes it personal when guys touch his quarterback, and his offensive lineman takes it personal when guys touch his quarterback. He don't want to be about that. He doesn't want to come across that, and that gets him fired up a little bit. He was referencing old offensive linemen and offensive line units from decades ago. He was talking about David Sanders and just was in, awe, saying, yeah, he's a 5-star for a reason. Talked about growing up in North Carolina, watching the SEC and dreaming about playing for an SEC school. There were so many different things about Sam Pendleton's first media appearance that I think you're going to love. And obviously he's, playing a little right guard, snapping the football a little bit as well, very confident in his own skin. I think Tennessee fans are going to love Sam Pendleton here on the offensive line. And last but not least, here in segment number 1, I do think, again, it's 3 practices in. They just put on the shoulder pads for the first time on Wednesday. So it's probably a little bit too early to make grand observations or declarations more so. But David Sanders looks like he's all the hype, right? Watching him do individual from a technical standpoint, he is sound. Physically, he looks good. Sam Pendleton was talking about him as well, about how he's strong, but knows that the weight has got to come along a little bit. He's at 290, wants to get it about 305. He's already put on 20 pounds since being here at Tennessee, and he's okay. He spoke to us on Monday. He was repping third team, in the practice that we saw. But again, it was just the second day of spring practice, and that's completely normal. Knows he's going to have to work himself into the starting lineup, and he's fine. Right now, he wants to be a sponge. He wants to learn. He wants to compete. He wants to get a grasp of the offense, and he's just putting his head down and going to work. And that's what I want. So I thought those were some interesting things we picked up on today and earlier this week. Nico, it just feels like he has a different mindset this spring. Sign me up for that. David Sanders feels like, at least right now, he is worth all the hype. He is all the hype. And certainly Sam Pendleton, I believe, is a guy that Tennessee fans are going to fall in love with. So a little bit from spring practice on a Wednesday, and Tennessee will be back on the practice field coming up later on Friday. So looking forward to that. And, of course, we'll break it all down here for you right here on Locked On Vols. Hey, when we come back, what Tennessee Vol has got to step up for Tennessee to go deep into the SEC tournament? All that and more. It's coming up next right here on Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finance. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without any stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Go ahead and check that out. I do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Factor Meals as well. Factor Meals, awesome meals, good for you as well. And if you're looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy and chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I know how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I recently tried the Protein Plus meals. They were packed with flavor, kept me full, energized throughout the entire day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Start eating smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off. Use the promo code LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's promo code LockedOnCollege50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Again, that is over at Factor Meals. Who is one guy that has got to step up this week in Nashville for Tennessee to make a deep run in the SEC tournament? If you head on over to Saturday Down South and check out kind of what's some of the latest projections and stories out there, Derek Peterson had a story out there that kind of broke down one player that needs to step up for all 16 teams. Go down to the 4-seeded Tennessee Volunteers. He lists Igor Milicic Jr. He says this, quote, Chaz Lanier is going to get his. Zakai Ziegler is going to do what he does. Jordan Gainey has been strong off the bench in recent weeks. I'm looking to see if Milicic can snap out of an extended shooting funk he has been in. Over his last 5 games, Milicic is 12 for 34 from the field. His 13-point game against South Carolina in the regular season finale snapped a string of 4 consecutive single-digit performances. When Lanier draws extra attention from defenses this week, Milicic is going to find himself open. Tennessee needs him to knock down those shots, end quote. While I don't necessarily disagree, I mean, I'd be great if all that happened. You know, I'm going to kind of go back to what Ryan and I spoke about on yesterday's show. Chaz Lanier is going to get his. He's going to be a volume shooter. He's going to shoot. He was brought here to shoot, take a shot. I think that he needs to drive to the basketball more, to drive to the hoop more. I think you've seen that in recent games as well. But Chaz Lanier is going to take his shots and do all that. So guys, Ziegler's going to play lockdown defense, going to take some shots, create a little bit when he can, try to get everybody involved. Of course, leading the SEC in assists. So Zakai Ziegler is going to do what he does. But I love Jordan Gainey off the bench. I think Jordan Gainey is a separator. I think Jordan Gainey is a guy that can create off the dribble. I think Jordan Gainey is really good off ball. I think Jordan Gainey is capable of playing the point. I mean, pretty much anything you need him to do, I think he's capable of doing it. And you've seen him perform very, very well in all those respects at points and times this year. He has got to be consistent off the bench, where he has lacked a bit of consistency at points and times this year. But I think Gainey truly is that X factor for Tennessee heading into the SEC tournament. Igor, I mean, if you were going to score 10-plus points a game consistently, heck yeah. I mean, he's got an NBA body. He's a stretch four. He's rebounded so well, as Ryan pointed out. But now that's something, if you just watch the game, you can tell. Wasn't necessarily known as a great rebounder coming into Tennessee, his Tennessee career, but he's really excelled in that, while here with the Vols. So he's got a rebound. It'd be great if he could rebound even more on the offensive end and create second chance opportunities for Tennessee. But I've kind of given up faith that he could be that three for you. That one's Chaz, that two is Zakai. I've kind of given up faith a long time ago that Igor is going to be that three for you. I just feel like he's never been consistent in that regard. Again, that's kind of where I'd have Gainey. But nonetheless, if Igor does kind of break out and build off the South Carolina regular season finale where he scored 13 points, I think that's going to be huge. Cade Phillips is another one for me, man. He is such a spark plug. He is such a ball of energy off the bench, not just because he's on the receiving end of those alley-oops, but he plays good defense. He comes in and makes an impact in this game. I love watching the way Cade Phillips plays this game, and he's been really, really good. So he's not necessarily in this conversation. I mean, it takes a village, but I think Cade Phillips is also worth mentioning kind of when you're talking about who needs to step up and play to give Tennessee a chance to go and win this whole thing. Now, the question's kind of been a talking point on Wednesday and earlier this week. It's kind of the old SEC baseball tournament simulation, right? It's, do you need the rest, or do you want to go and make a run and win this whole thing? Now, I think Tennessee baseball, and this is different, but let me talk baseball for a moment. In 2022, you won pretty much everything you possibly could win, but you dropped Game 3 on your home field in the Supers and missed out on an Omaha berth. You were widely regarded as the best regular season college baseball team in history, the number 1 overall seed. Tennessee went and won the whole thing in Hoover, but ultimately bowed out in Game 3 of the Supers on its home field. So that was 2022. 2024, Tennessee, again, won pretty much everything you could possibly win. The regular season, won the tournament in Hoover, was the number 1 overall seed, broke through, won the national championship. So you can't really point and say, oh, well, 2022, it didn't help them there. Because, I mean, in 2024, they won the whole thing and then went on. They won the whole thing in Hoover and then went on and won the whole thing in the NCAA tournament. So in Omaha in the College World Series. No, basketball and baseball are not different, but are not the same. But it's just an example to where it's not like it's going to crush you. It's not like it's going to hurt you. Now, in basketball, the NCAA Selection Committee has proven year in and year out that they simply don't care what the SEC championship game looks like on Sunday because they're lazy and they've got all their brackets done. They've got it all done by Saturday night. The ACC championship game is played on Saturday night, and typically the ACC's the best conference in basketball, and they got it done on Saturday night. That's obviously not the case this year. As we spoke about continuously on the show this week, the SEC is obviously the best conference in college basketball right now. So if Tennessee knocks off Auburn on Saturday and has a spot in the championship, Tennessee's obviously got to handle business against either Texas A&M or Texas. That's the first game's coming up on Friday, but say they do, and which they should. Say Tennessee knocks off Auburn on Saturday, and then say Tennessee beats either Alabama or Florida on Sunday in the SEC championship game. That's got to mean something, right? So because of everything that's at stake and how good the SEC is this year, I think you make a run at this thing. Not that you ever wouldn't. And Rick Barnes kind of was asked that in a roundabout way on Wednesday earlier this week. And he was like, I mean, every tournament we're in, we're trying to win. I mean, it's not even a question. And I'm not saying it's not. You're not going out there and throwing the game. You're not going out there and giving less than 50% effort or whatever. But I think with everything and how heavily weighted the conference is this year, I truly think playing on Sunday and winning the SEC championship game could make a difference, especially if Tennessee knocks off a team like Alabama or Florida, who are both contending and vying for that number one seed, just like the Volunteers are. ESPN's Joe Lunardi earlier this week said the final number one seed is going to go to the survivor of the SEC tournament. That would, he don't take him for everything, but that would lead me to believe that Sunday's actually going to pay dividends for the Volunteers or for whoever in the SEC this year, not name Auburn probably. So we'll see what happens. But I think Tennessee could really, really help themselves out tremendously by winning the whole thing and playing into Sunday. Sure, that's 3 wins in 3 days against 3 really, really good opponents. It'd be probably A&M and then almost certainly Auburn, and then, of course, either Alabama or Florida. That would be a tough stretch, don't get me wrong. But I think Tennessee certainly would benefit from doing just that. Now, if Tennessee were to lose on Saturday to Auburn or whatever, and I think Tennessee needs to win Friday, but you're not going to be docked. I think you're still going to be a 2 seed on that 2 line, but certainly I think there's some opportunity to be had here. So, Igor Milicic Jr., certainly would be great if he could step up. Jordan Gainey's kind of my pick right there to go along and play the third to Zakai Ziegler and Chaz Lanier. Any way you want to spin it, it is a team game, and the Volunteers certainly are going to need everybody to kind of play their part. Tennessee's got the second game coming up tomorrow in Nashville. I'm going to take on the winner of Texas A&M, and at the time of this recording, Texas is leading Vanderbilt by dang near 20. Actually, it's only a 10-point game now. Anyway, obviously, I'm recording this in the evening of Wednesday, so it looks like Texas is going to win that one. Texas and Texas Tech, unless Vanderbilt makes a ferocious comeback here, down 11 with less than 3:30 in the game. Tennessee's going to await the winner of Texas and Texas A&M, 2 teams Tennessee's already played this year. And honestly, just like Ryan said, Vanderbilt played you really, really tough, obviously, in Nashville. And so you kind of want to steer away from that matchup. We'll see what happens. But, of course, so much momentum, so much to talk about heading into NCAA tournament. But the SEC tournament is first here in Nashville this weekend. What's been the theme? What's been the biggest takeaway for the GOAT of Tennessee football coverage, that is Brent Hubbs, 3 days into spring practice? I'll ask my boss at VolQuest.com, Brent Hubbs, his big takeaways of Tennessee football spring practice to date. That's coming up next as we continue on here with your Thursday Locked On Vols. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back at all, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. This is Taxes. Get the expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available TurboTax Live, full service, real-time updates, only available on iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. That is TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Standing outside of Tennessee spring practice, you can hear the horn in the background here. This is practice number 3. I'm Eric Cain, Brent Hubbs, my boss over at VolQuest.com. Brent, again, this is very early, not even 3 practices in the books, but what are some early takeaways you have from Tennessee football spring practice?
Well, I think that, first of all, I think you start with the analyst and the hires that Josh Heupel made with the veterans there, and we saw those guys be very hands-on. When you talk about defensively, special teams, I think we're seeing that as those guys get acclimated, you're seeing them more and more, and what you're reminded of is that it takes an army. There's so many guys out there. But it's allowing, on the defensive side, I think it's allowing Tim Banks to be a little bit more of a walk-around coordinator, which he's been very hands-on with the safeties his entire tenure here and has worked all individual drills with safeties. And you go to their third practice that they had on Wednesday, and you look up and he's over watching the defensive line. He's over in the middle of linebacker drills, and then he comes over and he observes the safety stuff going on. So I think he's going to have a much more holistic view as a coordinator for the first time in his tenure. That's one thing that stuck out to me, as we've kind of progressed through spring practice here.
I think this is not necessarily a spring practice topic, but a topic this offseason. Not a whole lot of changes on his coaching staff, and it's never been that way. I know Mike Eckler went to Nebraska. But so many times, fans are wanting change maybe, or just seeing that, hey, the offense doesn't look the same that it did the first 2 years. Adding new voices in the room, especially familiar voices that he knows, but also have been out like Seth Littrell that's had other experiences. He's been a head coach. He's operated tons of top offenses in his respective conferences before while at North Texas. So I think that's big. And then Alan Williams, which you were referencing, stepping in on safeties and allowing Tim Banks to move around a little bit, he's coordinated defenses in the NFL.
Right.
I think that just, though there's not been changes on the assistant staff outside of Chop, more voices in the room, adding a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, and I think more eyes, for observation. Hey, Coach, let's look at it this way. And I think Seth Littrell can do that offensively really well. I mean, I think, it's a former roommate of Josh. I would imagine they've probably had some pretty frank conversations through the years. And I would think that that's a good thing for Josh Heupel, that he can sit down and go, Coach, you look at it doing this way. He's seen it from a head coaching lens, a coordinator lens, former player, knows the offense lens. So I do think new eyeballs on your program is certainly a good thing when you're doing an evaluation. And listen, here's the thing about Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel is very guarded and very protective of his offense. I think it's an unfair notion to suggest that he's not willing to compromise or adjust or change his offense. And he has to adapt as defenses are adapting to them. And I think we're not going to see that this spring, but I am curious to see what their adaptations and adjustments are to their offense come this fall.
I'm intrigued to see kind of what the talk is leaving practice number 3 and, of course, practice on Friday. Then they have spring break. But the shoulder pads came on today. And so the physicality is going to ramp up. And we don't truly know about line of scrimmage play until the pads come on. That being said, David Sanders has looked fantastic. I think Wendell Moy Jr., the offensive line transfer from Arizona, looks like he's played a whole lot of football. Sam Pendleton, he's been primarily at right guard, but a little bit at center as well. I think there's a lot of storylines leading off with David Sanders that are going to start ramping up here in spring practice.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it's also about where's Tyree Weathersby on defense? Where are some of these guys, some of these inside guys as well? How much does Dominique Bailey slide in there? There's a lot of different things like that you can look at. But, the first couple practices are all about the athletes running around because you're in shorts. Now we're going to find out, where's David Sanders' strength level at?
Yeah.
Where is he from that standpoint? Same with Wendell Moore. What does a Satterwhite look like at center? Max Anderson, where are they physically? Because now that's the test, right? You can know what to do. Your footwork can be clean. All that can look good. But what does it look like when you really start getting after it physically? And obviously that's what's going to happen next. So now we start to get into football. We start some real evaluation in the line of scrimmage.
Speaking of looking good, looking clean, Mike Matthews, I guess it was Monday's practice, had a couple of great catches, and he was getting some one-on-one instruction from Kelsey Pope. And, he's clearly they're trying to make him be the leader of this wide receiver room. So many questions there. Of course, you got Chris Brazel, Matthews, Braylon Staley, Amari Jefferson. You hope can be full-go contact when they get back from spring break. But anything stood out to you about the wide receivers so far in camp?
Well, I think athletically they show up. I think it looks like they're there. The question is, how are they going to be physically? Can they beat man coverage, press man coverage? Who leads in that group? I think there's a lot of questions that are not going to get answered about them. I think you're going to know who the pool of guys are, but who emerges. Certainly Matthews has a great skill set. I like Braylon Staley's skill set because he catches the ball with his hands. Ball never gets on his body, which I think is important. And then you got the Boo Carter factor.
Yeah.
And what does Boo Carter look like? They have consistently worked him every day on the practice field at receiver. I don't think that's just window dressing. So how much can that role grow? How does he balance that growing role offensively with what they're expecting of him defensively? I don't think he's going to play 30, offensive snaps a game. But I think if you're playing him on offense, you're going to play him some meaningful snaps with the idea that he's going to be a part of that equation. He's not just out there to say, oh, Boo Carter's out there. You're trying to get him the ball in different ways. So I'm curious to see how that evolves.
Last thing, all eyes always on the quarterback. And the more you rep, the more you practice, the better you should get. Of course, he had a whole season of starting under his belt. But I think, and you and I have talked about this several times, outside of just throwing routes on air and reading defenses and all that over the course of the next month, he's got to learn to be a leader. He's got to learn to be a vocal leader because Cooper Mays is not here. Dylan Sampson, Brew McCoy's not here. That's not necessarily his forte, but you're the quarterback of the University of Tennessee, and I think this spring practice is a good opportunity to kind of get reps in that regard.
Well, and however you do it, whether you're a rah-rah guy, whether you're an in-the-face guy, you have to figure out, for whatever your personality is, to elevate the 10 guys around you, to elevate their game. However that whatever means that is, you have to figure that out. And I think that's his challenge. I do think, and he's not pushing for the starting job or anything like that, I do think Jake Merklinger is better. I think that his delivery has improved. I think there's been some development there with Joey Halsley that you feel much better about him than you did a year ago, just in the way he throws the ball. But all eyes are on Nico. All our eyes are going to be on not just his physical improvement and his mental improvement, X's and O's wise, but how does he lead? Because he is the face of this offense. He is the voice of this offense. How does he handle that? How does he get out of his comfort zone a little bit and step up into a role that he needs to step up into?
Brent, I talk about it all the time here on Locked On Vols, but VolQuest, we do great work over there. And right now with basketball happening, baseball, spring practice, recruiting, $1 first 7 days if you're a new subscriber. You can't really beat that deal.
No, just check us out. I mean, that's all we've ever asked of anybody is if you watch us on YouTube or you whatever, you hear about us, you see us on social media, what's it about? Just give us a look. Give us 7 days, and I think you'll like what you see. I think you'll like what you read, what you hear, the information that's provided via the message board. Certainly Matt and Austin with recruiting stuff, and Austin with football stuff, and you and I with football stuff. Obviously, you with baseball, basketball covered. We're covering it all, and we're covering it really extensively every day. So I don't think there's a better place. I just say give us a chance. Give us 7 days and see what you think.
He's Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com.
Great stuff there from Brent Hubbs, VolQuest.com, on the first 3 practices of Tennessee football spring workouts. That's going to do it here for your Thursday morning Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for being here. Tell your friends, tell that Vol fan in your life that this show's right here. It's for them. It's for you. Everydayers, it's for definitely you. When you wake up in the morning, it's free and available wherever you get your podcast. We'll get you set for the weekend. Tennessee baseball begins SEC play. Tennessee basketball in the SEC tournament. All that and more is coming up on your Friday Locked On Vols. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody. Thanks so much.